Has our world been emotionally illiterate all along? Welcome back to Heaven on Earth, where psychotherapy meets spirituality, where inner journeys become outer abundance, and where together we explore the visible and invisible dimensions of being human. I'm your host, Claudia Cauterucci. Let me start with something that happened in a session a long time ago. I wasn't exactly a newbie, but I was right around there, probably 5 years into my practice. A very accomplished man, high achieving, Washington, D.C., big, huge organization person, articulate, respected in his field, sat across from me and he said, completely sincerely, I don't really have feelings. I'm not a feeling type of person. And I remember thinking, you just described in one sentence the single most dangerous thing a human being can believe about themselves. Feelings don't disappear when we decide, they go somewhere. And usually it's underground. And underground feelings do not stay quiet. They find another exit. So today, let's talk about something that I believe and suggest that sits at the root of almost every crisis that we are witnessing now in our homes, in our relationships, in our institutions, in our politics, in our wars. Emotional illiteracy, the profound collective, multi-generational inability to read, understand, interpret, and work with our emotional experience. And this isn't just personal. What I'm suggesting today is that it is civilizational. And it's time that we talk about it. After 25 years of sitting with human beings across every background, credential, life circumstance, on and on, cruelty does not come from out of the blue. Evil does not just show up, and people act out because they cannot find words for what they feel. Bam. And when feelings have no language, no permission, and no container, they find one anyway. We will find a place to put our feeling. Addiction is feelings that need relief. Affairs are feelings looking for aliveness again. Rage is feelings that were not allowed to be heard. Fraud and deception are feelings of inadequacy that found a shortcut. Withdrawal and silence are feelings that gave up on being heard. The silent treatment are feelings that need to punish. Every single one of these, every compulsion, every explosion, every implosion is an emotional that didn't have anywhere legitimate to go. So let's talk about depression and anxiety, because I like to talk about them a little bit differently from what popular culture describes them as. So in my clinical experience and in the framework that I've built over these decades of working, there's something that's pretty consistent. Depression has a compressed, really compressed quality to it. They are feelings that have been held down for a long time. They are tightly packed. And you know, I like to teach in visuals, so I hope this has helped. It's grief that hasn't been allowed to move. There's no movement in these compacted feelings, which, by the way, is why when we're depressed, we don't really want to move. We don't want to get out of bed. We don't want to take a shower. The way Freud described it is that depression is anger turned inwards. So instead of exploding, we implode, but we compact it inside. Depression is layered with needs that were systematically dismissed until we just begin to dismiss them too. We begin to dismiss our own needs. And depression doesn't always say, hey, I'm sad. It's not always the way that it shows up. Sometimes depression looks like, looking and feeling just flat, just blah, eternal blahness. It feels empty, and it's like a peculiar exhaustion of carrying something for a very long time. And so you've even forgotten about it. You can't name it. You can't place it. And it's confusing because you might be looking around thinking, but my life is great. Why do I feel this empty, this flat, this heavy? Now let's take anxiety. Anxiety carries a different type of signature. It moves fast. Anxiety has a lot of movement. It anticipates, and it mostly anticipates catastrophes. It catastrophizes. And all of this is energy. Underneath depression, anxiety is energy. It's real, it's alive, it's emotional energy. I hold that feelings are energy. It's not clear, it doesn't have a safe outlet, it's not really given permission to be felt because it's a little scary. Think of rushes and rushes and rushes of bubbles, of energetic bubbles moving through your body, which is what it's supposed to do if we can allow it to leave. That's why it shows up spastically as phobias, as panic attacks. That's what the forms that anxiety begins to take, this rush of energetic bubbles. In depression, it's compacted, coagulated bubbles. You feel me? You see me? You get what I'm saying? Feelings are energy. Energy moves, or it doesn't. When it doesn't, when it can't, it finds somewhere else to live. And usually somewhere else to live that we have not chosen. It lives in the body, it lives in behavior, and it lives in the world. So let's zoom out because we're talking about the world. Let's zoom out. Let's shift the angle about how we look at things. So we look at addiction, for example, and we see a substance use problem. We look at violence and see a crime problem. We look at war and see a political problem. We look at infidelity and we see a commitment problem or a morality problem. We look at fraud and see a character problem. And yeah, at the point the behavior is happening, it's partially right. But underneath almost every one of those situations, when you sit with someone long enough to go beneath them, beneath the behavior to the experience underneath it, there are feelings that had nowhere to go. Punto. And this episode isn't about justifying behavior. This episode is about understanding what we've done as humans for so long, or maybe what we haven't done. So there is a child who learned that emotions were dangerous, inconvenient, embarrassing, shameful, or simply not allowed. Maybe that family felt that having emotions took away their upper hand. And so this becomes an adult who still believes that carrying these strategies, which were actually a child who was just trying to survive their environment or emulate it, right? Triggers aren't random. A trigger that lands on an unhealed past wound. I always say it's a trigger is almost like a heat seeking missile. It will find the place where you need healing. It will find your wounds. That's why I always say thank you triggers, because we might not know that that wound is still unhealed. And usually with a trigger, the reaction feels disproportionate from what's actually happening outside of you because it's carrying the weight, the layers, the library of experience from somewhere else entirely, right? So the person in traffic isn't angry at traffic. Your partner who shuts down in conflict isn't exactly indifferent to the relationship. The leader who compulsively lashes out under pressure isn't just because he's present day aggressive. They are all in that moment emotionally illiterate about what's actually happening inside. And the cost of that illiteracy gets paid by everyone in their proximity. Why am I talking about this? Why is this so important right now? And it might surprise you. I propose that emotionally illiteracy isn't just a personal issue or a relational problem. It's the thread running through human history. Wars have been started by unregulated leaders carrying unprocessed shame, rage, grief. Genocides have been engineered by systems that weaponize collective fear because collective fear is easier to mobilize than collective grief. Empires have been built on suppression of feeling because people who can't access their own grief, rage, longing, desperation are a people who end up feeling powerless and are so much easier to control. The home that looks so perfect on the outside but is slowly fracturing on the inside is the small version of the same story. In fact, I would propose that when we're trying so hard to look like we're perfect on the outside, that is not having feelings of competition, feelings of shame, feelings of feeling less than. Just think of it when we work so hard, feelings of fear in some homes to be perfect, right? Corporate America has been run by executives who can't tolerate vulnerability. That's the small version of the same story. Your partner who lies about small things until the lies become a way of life. Same story. The small is always in the all, and the all is always in the emotionally illiteracy is not a private problem that only happens to certain people. That makes us feel safe, doesn't it? When we think it's over there. It is a civilizational condition that we have all been swimming in for centuries. And this is why it matters exactly now. We are living in a time of extraordinary exposure. I've been talking about it on the podcast and in my books. Systems that have been operating behind closed doors for generations are becoming visible. All those behaviors, whether it's in families, in couple relationships, in systems that were protected by silence or by hierarchy, by the cultural permission to look away, are being named. And yes, it feels chaotic, but it is actually not. It's actually a civilizational reckoning. And it is happening precisely because there is a shift in the collective consciousness. More people on the planet, certainly since 2020, and I would venture to say since 2012, since the 2000s even, more people are doing the inner work. More people have found the language for what was done to them and what they've done in turn. More people are refusing to mask to perform their wellness while they're drowning inside. More people are talking and supporting each other in healing. So the exposure that we're seeing is not a sign that the world is getting worse. Listen to me. Remember, my whole thank you triggers things. It leads us to the places that need healing. It is actually a sign that emotional illiteracy is finally being diagnosed at scale. And diagnosis, however uncomfortable, and it can sometimes feel very jarring, is always the beginning of something. If you go back in my podcast, you'll see that I had a little red dot here, and I noticed that it just kept growing. I just thought it was a birthmark, but it kept growing. And when I went to get it checked just last month, yeah, it was a carcinoma and it had to be removed. And that was a diagnosis, and that is a trigger. It triggers me to look at places that need healing. That happens on our body and it happens in our emotional operating system. We get called out when we need it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about something that I've been nuancing for a long time now, since I created dynamic meditation method, since I've done my own internal emotional work. And it's a very interesting distinction. It's the difference between emotional calibration and emotional regulation. And I talked about it in one of my earlier podcasts, but it's worth describing again. Regulation is the word that most people know, and it sounds like calming down when we're emotionally regulated. It's like managing the reaction. It's getting the feelings under control, and regulation is real. And it's super important. It's the outer work of bringing the nervous system back into a window of tolerance after we've been activated. Calibration is something deeper. Calibration is the inner work. It's the ongoing, honest relationship with our own emotional landscape. So it's actually doing the work of knowing what you're feeling behind how you're presenting. Okay. It's like distinguishing between what you're actually feeling and the interpretation that you're placing on it. It's the deeper understanding of this particular thing. It's understanding why this particular person, thing, event triggers you with this particular intensity. And calibration is actually what makes regulation sustainable in the long run. Regulation without calibration can turn into better performing without deeper exploration. And, performing or masking has its own set of feelings that become accumulative. So, one of the ways that I like to describe it is that you are the DJ of your emotional experience, literally, right? Like you're the buttons. You know how DJs always have these levers that they balance, that they play with. That's you. So the DJ isn't eliminating music. We're not eliminating our feelings. The DJ reads the room. The DJ reads the energy. The DJ is super aware, knows what's playing, and makes conscious choices of how to transition the music, what transitional tracks to put in, and about what comes next. That's the goal. Conscious choice. We are here to feel fully and respond wisely. Okay, hold on. For those of you who are thinking, and I know that you're listening to this, and you might be thinking, like, wait a minute, Claudia, I'm not out here committing fraud or infidelity. I'm not starting wars. I don't have conflict in my home, right? I'm just doing my week. And yes, I hear you, but this is for you too. It's for all of us. And sometimes we get away with not exploring our feelings by saying, hey, but look, I'm chill in traffic. Because emotional illiteracy in everyday life looks much quieter and less dramatic than in the examples that I just gave you. It looks like avoiding the conversation because you don't know what to say and you don't know what will happen or what you'll feel if you bring it up, right? That in itself is being afraid. That's a feeling of opening that conversation. It looks like feeling exhausted and you have no idea. It looks like saying, hey, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good. I got it. And you don't even know that you are not only performing for others, but you might be lying to yourself. It looks like being in a relationship where you know you love the person and that there's love between you, but something is off. There's always that rub, and neither of you can name it. It looks like numbing. And in the dynamic meditation method, I always teach numbing is a feeling. Have you ever felt when the dentist numbs your gums? That's a feeling. Numbing has a feeling. Or you numb with food or with scrolling, with busyness, with wine, with that drink after work every night, with Netflix, with wanting to sleep, but you can't sleep. It looks like when you know something's wrong, but you can't locate it. You don't know why your life is feeling off, empty, unfulfilled, hard. All feelings beneath. And we're not given a map. We're not given instructions. We don't understand it. And we have messengers. One of those messengers is our body. Feelings are not an abstraction. They actually will find a place. And one of those places is physiological, right? Feelings will move through our entire nervous system. They change our heart rate. They change our breathing. They change our muscle tension. They change our hormonal environment. It changes whether we can digest or not digest. When a feeling is consistently suppressed, listen, pushed down, it doesn't evaporate. It doesn't disappear. It takes up residence in your body. In this beautiful real estate we've got going, it shows up. It might be tension in the jaw. It might be a tightness in the chest. It might be the way that our stomach contracts when we're tense. Folks with PTSD have all sorts of digestive issues because they grew up contracting their stomach out of fear, out of tension for so long. It might show up as sexuality that's gone flat, or how about this, that has become aggressive and violent, basically an expression of rageful dominance, maybe sexuality that has gone frantic. I talk a lot about that in the book because sexuality of all human experiences is profoundly connect to the capacity to feel. We are expressing a ton of emotion through our sex. Even when you feel that you're not feeling in sex, that it's a quick one night stand, or that you're using the other person, trust and believe that there are all sorts of feelings as to how you got there. Dysregulated sexuality is almost always, in my clinical experience, about a disrupted relationship with feeling itself. The body might be numb and is seeking a place for a sensation to break through. We know that sex has tolerance levels, and we keep creating higher tolerances because of what we are feeling. Or maybe the body is so overwhelmed that we shut down completely. And the ways back to a healthy sexuality is not by becoming better at it, it's by becoming more emotionally literate. What are we feeling? It's about creating a willingness to feel what there is to feel and slowly and gently building a capacity to stay with it. I always say what we're actually building is a tolerance to going inside and feeling. It's how we start to do that. So how does this connect to what's happening on the planet right now? We are building artificial intelligence. We are making decisions of civilizational consequences every single day about what to build, what to destroy, how to build it, who it serves, what it protects, what it's allowed to do. These decisions are being made by human beings with nervous systems, with possibly unexamined histories, with emotional experiences they may or may not have language for. The urgency of emotional literacy is not philosophical, it's practical, it's immediate. An emotionally illiterate person running a company, running a country, running a family, running an algorithm produces the same output, but at a different scale. Suppression, control, the inability to tolerate complexity, feeling flooded, overwhelmed, avoidant. The world genuinely needs something different right now. And the something different begins inside. I know I get boring, I get repetitive, but this is the drum that I am beating. Inner literacy, outer agency. So where do we begin? How do we do it? Because I know you're asking. With the simplest but most radical act available to any of you, to any human being at any time. You want to be revolutionary, you want to be rebellious, you want to be a disruptor, even if you don't. You want to change how things have been going in your own life radically. Here it is, noticing, just noticing, becoming the observer. You don't have to fix, you don't have to manage, you don't have to immediately perform something better. That's not where it starts. This is the start of all psychotherapy, all meditation, all wise parenting, all good leadership is the act of noticing, just pausing enough, the sacred pause to look and ask, what am I actually feeling right now? Underneath the irritation, is there hurt? Underneath the withdrawal, is there longing? Is there a need? Underneath that busyness, is there grief? Is there a feeling alone? Now, even these questions are too advanced. Just notice. Underneath the need for control, is there fear? This is the beginning of emotional literacy, right? This isn't a master class. It's not a therapy marathon. Even today, by the end of this episode, you will be able to say, hey, I'm going to notice. It's not a full on personality overhaul. It's just a genuine question. And you ask it with curiosity, not judgment. And you're looking at your own experience. That's the practice. That's where it starts. And that single practice that's repeated over time changes the quality of every relationship, every decision, every conversation, every leadership moment you will ever have. It has done wonders for my parenting. I have messed up in my parenting, but this act of the sacred pause and going inside while I'm having a conversation has changed the way that conversation goes. You can't give what you can't access. And the world right now is desperately asking for humans who can feel, who can choose, who can connect, hashtag, shout out, empath leader, and who can remain deeply human under pressure. That's the work. That's why we're here. That's why I'm beating this drum through everything that I do and everything I create. Thank you for being here. It's an invitation. This conversation matters deeply to me. And I believe that it matters for where we are as a species right now. More is coming, more exploration of our beautiful human operating system. There's something amazing about being human. We're going to be having more conversations about how the clinical becomes the philosophical, and the philosophical becomes something you can actually use on a Tuesday. Until next time, and borrowing from the great Casey Kasem, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the skies, and take care of your inner world, because your inner world is always shaping your outer world. This is Heaven on Earth, a portal to possibility. See you soon.